Welcome back to part 2 of this St. Corona series. I must admit that my thoughts and ideas are still incomplete and somewhat underdeveloped, but given my May 14th deadline, I just had to get this information out. If I hadn't imposed this deadline, the story would never get told, because this research never ends. I'm hoping that that some of my more astute viewers can help me with my current blind spots. So let's proceed. Most versions of St. Corona's life have her martyred in the year 170 AD. Emperor Aurelius was dealing with a deadly Antonine plague for which the Christians were blamed. In the following persecution, St. Victor and St. Corona were tortured and killed. So here is the Antonine plague, also called the Plague of Galen. It was an ancient pandemic brought to the Roman Empire by troops who were returning from campaigns in the Near East. So these fake plagues always come from the East. Some think it was either smallpox or the measles. Let's see. In 169, Marcus Aurelius was the co-regent. The two emperors had risen to the throne by virtue of being adopted by the previous emperor, Antoninus Pius, and as a result, their family name, Antoninus, has become associated with the pandemic. I'm wondering if that's why Anthony Fauci was given the name Antony. Is he from gens Antonia? It was legions along the Rhine, which is where Aachen Cathedral is. Here's Marcus Aurelius Antoninus in the Marcomannic Wars against the Germanic tribes along the Danube frontier in the early 170s AD. And this Danube frontier is notable because that's where most of the Mithraea have been found. They number 420 in total for your code 42. Again, Mithras shows its head. Here's Marcus Aurelius celebrating his triumph over Rome's enemies in 176 AD, riding in a quadriga chariot. And this is the mosaic in Beth Alpha synagogue with Sol Invictus Mithraeus in the center, in a quadriga. The quadriga is a symbol of Heliodromus, the sixth stage in the initiation rites of Mithras. His symbols are the whip, the radiate halo, and the torch, just like the androgynous Statue of Liberty. Also, a globe in the left hand was symbolic of Heliodromus. And Mithras enjoyed a sacred meal before ascending to heaven, and this is mirrored in the Last Supper of Christ and commemorated with the Eucharist. So what exactly is a martyr? A martyr is someone who suffers persecution and death for advocating, renouncing, refusing to renounce, or refusing to advocate a religious belief or cause as demanded by an external party. The blood of martyrs is the seed of Christians, said Tertullian, the father of Latin Christianity. The Church was born out of the persecutions and martyrdom of its first members. So I wonder what the real inspiration was if these martyrs were fictional, which I believe they were. Here's the Roman martyrology, the 14th day of May, describing Victor and Corona. A martyrology is a catalogue or list of martyrs and other saints and beati, arranged in the calendar order of their anniversaries or feasts. The Roman martyrology lists each of the martyrs on his or her dies natalis, or birthday into eternal life. That's why they celebrate it with a feast or a festival. In 1582, Pope Gregory VIII decreed a revision of the Julian calendar, creating a new system, what we call the Gregorian calendar. The first printed edition appeared at Rome a year later in 1583. One could almost call it the propaganda arm of the new Gregorian calendar. A martyr is a date. Here's Pope Gregory VIII. He commissioned the Gregorian calendar, initially authored by the doctor astronomer Aloysius Lilius and aided by Jesuit priest astronomer Christopher Clavius, who made the final modifications. So the Gregorian calendar is just a huge Jesuit project, of course, and they have to throw the globe in with it just for good measure. So Saint Corona in the Orthodox Church is also known as Stephana, Stephanida, or Stephanie. Stephanie is the female name from the Greek Stephanos, meaning crown. Stephan means crown. Here are some verses from the Greek Orthodox. To Victor, without cowardice, Victor proceeded towards the sword, for all cowardice is distanced by your shining heart. To Stephanie, Stephanie is bound to a palm tree by which the martyr blossomed like a date palm. The Stephanos, Greek for crown, is also called the mitre. It's the purely liturgical headgear customary today for the bishops and patriarchs of many Orthodox and Catholic Eastern churches. The Stephanos is modeled on the imperial crown of the late Byzantine Empire. So here are some examples of the Stephanos: Armenian, Russian. So the mitre used to refer to the headband worn by women. It was a mark of effeminacy. It was the headdress of a priest of Hercules as well as the headdress of a Jewish high priest. It was developed from the Phrygian cap, or the Phrygium. Here's a Phrygium. Here's another Phrygian cap of sorts by Bezalel, who was the artisan of all the instruments inside the Jewish tabernacle in the desert. Here's Mithras with his Phrygian cap. And here's the Phrygian cap of the gnomes of Zurich. Whose crown is it? Saint Stephen is the very first Christian martyr, the proto-martyr. And his name means crown, and by extension reward, honor, renown, and fame. Stephen is often given as a title rather than as a name. The Stephanos HaKadosh in Hebrew. He was, according to the Acts of the Apostles, a deacon in the early church in Jerusalem, who angered members of various synagogues by his teachings. Accused of blasphemy, at his trial he made a speech denouncing the Jewish authorities who were sitting in judgment on him, and was then stoned to death. His martyrdom was witnessed by Saul of Tarsus, also known as Paul. And I believe Paul was involved in the stoning of Saint Stephen. He's also the patron saint of Masons. Interestingly, Anthony Fauci's middle name is Stephen. I believe it is a title. He is Jesuit trained in high school and university. And many of you know by now, Fauci is the Sicilian word for sickle. And the sickle of Saturn and the Phrygian cap of Mithras, the staff and ring, are all symbols of the seventh and final Mithraic grade, the Pater, Saturn. one could almost call him Antoninus Crown Sickle. He's very high up. Going even deeper, we find out that Anthony Fauci is Swiss. This is his maternal grandfather, Giovanni Abbes, born in Chur, Switzerland, 1876. This is the Abbes coat of arms. The Abbes viper monarch. Abyss means deep or seemingly bottomless chasm, the regions of hell conceived of as a bottomless pit, Satan's dark abyss. I got this information from this recent article. Very interesting read. Highly suggest you taking a look at it. And if you just want to listen to the article, the author of the article, an interview with him, you can listen to the Mike and Doug Show. The Abyss of Humanity. So the Abbes family were Swiss mining, trading, war minister, banking, medical, academia, engineering, transport. Family crest from 1589. It's the crown viper laden with buckets of gold devouring a grisling child. Grisling means crying or screaming, wailing. Here are some various spellings on the Abbes family. They originally lived in Puro in North Lombardia, Italy, which was originally Switzerland, home of the House Abyss. Way up here on the border between Switzerland and Italy. The Abbes mining of talc, gold, silver, and coal and uranium caused the worst landslide in recorded history on September 4th, 1618, wiping out the entire town of 2,500 people. The family then fled to Chur, Switzerland, and Kyrgyzstan, which is known as the Switzerland of Asia, and continued mining for another century. This avalanche is remembered as the Rodi Avalanche. In the article, he describes this entity that I've never heard of before, the Pilgrim Society. I'm going to have to look more into it. But he says that the British Pilgrim Society and its London bankers started 2 world wars to subdue and control the Swiss banking and trade strongholds, then invited their fellow Swiss and German Satanist elites, including the Habsburgs, to join them once they were tamed, like Klaus Schwab, who happens to be a cousin of Anthony Fauci's. Here is the Abbes family tree summary, all the way down to Anthony Fauci and his 3 daughters. Curiously, the Abbes family in Puro had adopted the city of Milan Biscione symbol as the crowned viper, eating a grisling human child. The Abbes crest added the yoke and buckets of gold in the 15th century. So instead of the serpent on a vertical pole, we have the serpent on a horizontal pole, which Dr. Sean Ross explains is the vertical rule of the New World Order. The horizontal rule of the New World Order. The vertical rule would be that of the firstborn son of royalty taking all, the primogenitor. And now you have the second, third, and fourth born sons taking their turns through fake elections. That's the New World Order, horizontal rule, as far as I understand. I wonder too if this yoke was added because of this incident. This is the Helvetians forced the Romans to pass under the yoke, celebrating the Tigurini Helvetii, Proto-Swiss victory over the Romans at Aachen in 107 BC, under De Vico's command. Here is the yoke, and the Romans are passing under it. Sean Ross also explains that Helvetica, the Proto-Helvetians, is a combination of Hel, the Norse goddess of the underworld, and Vatica, the Etruscan goddess of the underworld. The goddess Vatica was the lord of the underworld, underground, the dead, and dwelt on Vatican Hill, which was the Etruscan. Before the Romans and before the appearance of the Vatican Hill, it was not a necropolis. It was later built on the Cathedral of St. Peter. It turned out that the Vatican is the name of the Etruscan cemetery. Helvetica. Helvetian. So after the horrific landslide, the Abbess family moved to Chur, Switzerland, and that is in the canton Graubünden, and that translates as the Grey Leagues. They are the Greys that rule over us. Chur is the capital of Graubünden, and that also happens to be where Davos is located. Davos is 15 linear miles from Chur, practically in the backyard of the ancient Fauci family of Abbess. Let's have a look at where the Biscione came from. It was derived from the Latin bestia, the beast. It was originally the coat of arms for the House of Visconti, the lords and dukes of Milan. The city of Bellinzona also has the Biscione. They're in the capital of the Swiss canton, Ticino. So here's Bellinzona. Right up here is about where Piero was, and then they moved to Chur in Graubünden. Bellinzona is linked with the Gotthard Tunnel. This is the bronze serpent brought to Milan from Constantinople in the 11th century, today in the Basilica of St. Ambrose. It's thought to have inspired the Biscione. And I just put this in here to show how Otto III is very much linked with this whole area. Otto III, you'll remember, is the Holy Roman Emperor who brought St. Corona's relics to Aachen Cathedral in 997. Supposedly, this is the very same bronze snake that was erected by Moses in the desert to protect and heal the Israelites. Here you have the Templar cross right underneath it. We find this information in Numbers 21:6 for your 216 again, 216, 666. And Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on the standard, and it came about that if a serpent bit any man when he looked at the bronze serpent, he lived. I wonder if this has anything to do with Agenda 21. Agenda Numbers 21. Here's Michelangelo's image of the Israelites' deliverance from the plague in the Sistine Chapel. So this snake is said to have been brought to the Basilica of St. Ambrose in Milan from Constantinople in the year 1000, a gift of the Byzantine Emperor Basil II to the Holy Roman Emperor Otto III. Otto III, Saint Corona, coronavirus, bronze serpent. It's all related. This is the interior of the basilica. The Archbishop Arnolfo erected the snake in the basilica on a column, arousing local superstition. So a second column was erected as a corrective. So here you have the bronze serpent on a pillar and the cross on a pillar, the two pillars, which of course brings to mind John 3:1-4. As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up. I'm very attuned to 3:14 because I believe May is the true third month, if March was the first month, and May 14th is the true Pi Day, 314. Here's the exterior of St. Ambrose Basilica. Even St. Victor shows up in this basilica, in the Ciel d'Oro, the golden ceiling of San Vittore. Let's have a look at this name, Ambrose, from Ambrosios, immortal, belonging to the immortals, Ambrosia, Saint Ambrose. It's the favored food or drink of the gods. The Greek ambrosia, food of the gods, of the immortals, ambrosia, immortal, imperishable. It's the food of the gods. I believe this child is the ambrosia. They're living off the I don't even know. I can hardly wrap my head around it. The adrenochrome, the blood, cannibalism. Who knows? Who knows what these creatures are up to? This is even called the Ambrose Cross of Milan. The Ambrose Cross, St. Michael's Cross, St. George's Cross. And you have their marriage in the Alfa Romeo logo. This is St. Ambrose, the Bishop of Milan, one of the 4 doctors of the Church, along with St. Gregory the Great, St. Augustine, and St. Jerome. This is the Devil's Column outside of St. Ambrose Church, with 2 holes pierced by the devil's horns in frustration that he could not tempt St. Ambrose. I believe that the bronze serpent is the syringe. It's the vaccine. This is a monument of the bronze serpent on Mount Nebo in front of the Church of St. Moses, where Moses viewed the promised land he would never enter. It even looks like a syringe. And are people not worshiping the vaccine? Absolutely worshiping it, along with Dr. Fauci. It's called the Nehushtan, the great snake, the great serpent, or the great brass. The syringe even hisses. It's the susurration. Brazen means to harden, to braze, to solder, to expose to the action of fire. This is the hypodermic needle based on the cobra fang. And here they are, soldering their bronze serpents. The bronze serpent. Here's Fauci, Queen of the Abyss, holding his globus cruciger, just like Venus Urania, and even Mithras holding the celestial globe. 666, 666. They worship this globe. I will see you soon for part 3.